Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians, lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberger, host, broadcasting live from the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Boy, when I say that, and I say that every show, but it means a little bit more right now, judging by what the hell's going on in the Twin Cities, which I'm sure we'll get into with our guest today, because that is the topic du jour. Everyone's talking about it. I don't even know where this thing goes. It's not good. Go check out the video we just posted this morning. I hope you guys are enjoying the show content as well. We're trying to bring as much content as quickly as possible to you guys, stay on the forefront of the news cycle. This episode is brought to you by Alpine Chemistry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. Also brought to you by EliteGuardianMN.com. If you want to join us in the conversation and ask any questions to my guest, we will. I'll try to get to them for sure. If you want to interrupt me at any point, just hit that Rumble Rap button and I'll go to it live. And I think also Super Chats on YouTube. I don't think we've used that yet, but I do think that is live now. So without further ado, my guest today is John Krhin. He is a candidate for governor, somebody a lot of people don't know much about. I'll be honest, John, I just kind of, when you first emerged on my radar like a little over a month ago, because you were coming to the Action for Liberty Christmas event, I'm like, good luck, buddy, and it might still be that way. There are tiers to this thing, as you probably can tell. You got to raise money, you got to get your name out there. However, I couldn't ignore you because, well, both when I met you, it was a good experience, but I have a lot of friends that have said, yeah, I really like this guy. You should bring him on the show. And I know very little about you. Although I do know one detail about you personally that I'm expecting you to bring out in your bio, because I think this is really fascinating. So first, let's start there. Who are you?
Well, I'm a Chisholm native, born and raised in Chisholm. My family has been there for 40 years before I was. My father came to this country in 1913, and I was born the last of 8 children. My dad was actually 60 years old and my mother was 50 years old when I was born. My oldest brother is 31 years older than I am. He would have been 104 if he was still living. He passed away a few years ago. So I've got kind of a unique heritage.
Just
in fact, when I was growing up,
out of curiosity, so your dad being that much older than you, born in what year?
He was born in 1892.
I mean, that's just right there. It's crazy to think. So, like your dad, I mean, was he a World War I veteran? Oh no, we're getting technical issues. Your video is skipping here. If you could hear me, was your dad a World War I veteran?
Mm-hmm.
Oh shoot, we're losing him.
Well, he left Slovenia, which was then still on.
Oh no, we had so many technical issues getting the show started. If you guys are not from Minnesota, or somehow you're in the Twin Cities, you don't realize this. It's not like it's reliable internet all across the state of Minnesota. And so I don't know if that's the issue we're having, because I was definitely getting some video jump before we started. Hopefully he just jumps back in here. Mark says, I like him already. That's pretty funny. Yeah. Razzle Dazzle says, good work on the short clips. Well, thanks, Razzle Dazzle. That's what we're trying to do. I know everyone can't watch the whole show. John, can you hear me? John, can you hear me? Oh, please, God, I hope you can hear me. I'll make a really bad show if you can't.
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, yeah, you're jumping quite a bit.
I hope can you hear me?
I can kind of hear you. You're jumping quite a bit around.
There we go. I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Don't block the Wi-Fi, okay?
I won't block anything.
Right. Okay. So your dad was born in 1892. Was he a World War I veteran? I was just curious about that.
Yes,
Oh no.
sir.
Okay, I didn't even get. I couldn't even get
My
an answer.
father was work.
Oh shoot. Well, hopefully, John, if you can hear me, just sign out, sign
And
back in.
that's
I
why he
don't know
came
what
to
is.
these states.
John, I don't know what is going on. You probably got to sign out and sign back in. I'll add you back to the conversation. I don't know what is going on. There's a major tech issue, and you keep just like jumping out. Um, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot says kids riding on the Capitol steps and breaking doors at the Capitol. Is that you're saying that's happening right now? Am I missing a breaking news story here? I'm gonna check into this here. Is anyone aware of this? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Oh, yep. Oh my God. Okay, let's go to this here real quick. This seems to be some breaking news here. Um, let's bring this up here. So the crazy thing about doing a show live because you don't know what's going to pop up here. This is according to In Wokeness on Twitter. It says high school students for the anti-ICE rally in Minneapolis just made an amazing ad for deportation. Okay. Interesting. That is very interesting. Well, listen, if you guys watch my video I put out this morning, basically what I was trying to do is just use Tim Walz's own words from his address last night and stuff it right back in his face. A guy that literally said that people are trying to kill the vice president and the speaker of the House because of Donald Trump. So, and I could go clip after clip of Donald Trump saying that, or sorry, of Tim Walz saying Donald Trump, uh, try to orchestrate an insurrection on the Capitol. Um, well, last night, Tim Walz is telling people, like, basically that Nazis essentially is like saying like ICE is dragging pregnant women out on the streets that we need to resist. And I put a bunch of words here. These are the terms that Tim Walz used: chaos, disruption, armed, masked agents, door to door, pulling people over indiscriminatorily, breaking windows, pregnant women shoved into unmasked vans. No due process. By the way, what do you mean no due process? I'm pretty sure there's due process going on in Minnesota. I have a big issue with that. Not that I'm like if you watch a video, like I got things to say about Donald Trump's policy here. Like this thing is getting way out of hand. But you know, in fairness, if you take what Tim Walz said about Donald Trump during the insurrection on January 6th, and I think we all know that was a deep state ploy to like frame the MAGA movement. But if you take what he said, how does he not then accept blame for whatever happens like last night? And I'm sure you guys have seen this, a video that surfaced of people raiding was supposedly a federal law enforcement vehicle and stealing weapons and ammo from it and smashing like a laptop and then supposedly stealing, you know, um, documents that were used for law enforcement operations. And then, of course, this showing kids at the Capitol, and by the way, we're doing this live. So, there's no vetting. This is, you just give me the raw on this one. Um, so, yeah, it's just insane. Tucker says Walz said he is proud of this. I don't know what that means. Napkin Nate says, told my middle schooler they're trying to break into the school and the staff will prevent it. Respect for America says lock Walz up. did a video also yesterday on this articles impeachment for Tim Walz, which is really fascinating. Mike Weiner, Drew Roach, and a couple other legislators are filing articles of impeachment against Tim Walz. Basically, it's citing corrupt conduct in the office. There's only a few things you can, according to the Minnesota Constitution, impeach the governor for. One of those is corrupt conduct, which I think, and they have like 4 different articles trying to prove that. I think that should be very provable just based off of the massive fraud that's occurred under his watch. If you go back to this press conference, Tim Walz is saying resist, and then ask for the help of Minnesotans to establish a public record, whip out your cameras. And of course, he's encouraging people to show up to these sites and probably, and once again, I'm not going to say just by his words here, that's what he's doing. But if he's going to allege that's what Donald Trump did on January 6th, then let's throw his own words at him the same way, right? Aren't you inciting this certain kind of behavior to go over to the Capitol? Now, granted, Tim Walz said do it peacefully, but so did Donald Trump on January 6th, right? So yeah, that's the video I produced, and even used an old video of Tim Walz basically stating that, Donald Trump is guilty of trying to kill the vice president, the Speaker of the House. It's so fascinating. Tucker says secede from MSP. I don't know. I mean, we would all love to not have to be here in the cities. Carla Nelson, the Patriot Carla Nelson, not the Senator Carla Nelson, said the last independent school district 622, the council was anti-ICE in support of the 2 students that were anti-ICE, spoke at the meeting and said they're living in fear. So sad. Yeah, I've got an email from the superintendent of our schools, somebody I actually know, sort of in the military with them, talking about this, with students in the Stillwater School District. It's just so fascinating to see the reaction. Now, I'll just put it this way. I didn't actually want to talk much about this issue. Like, this has never been my biggest issue. I guess where I always stood is we should have a border, obviously. You can't just have people coming over here illegally. Like, you got to have laws. But, like, this is Minnesota. I mean, we don't really have mass immigration over the Canadian border that's plaguing Minnesota, right? So it's never been a huge issue for me. And then, when they're doing these operations, my assumption was, hey, they're going after some hardened criminals, which, by the way, seems to be not all true. Seems to be a false narrative from the Trump administration. But they are definitely going after hardened criminals, too. It's like, can you imagine, like, getting in and interdicting, like, some kind of law enforcement operation? What if they are taking, like, a child sex trafficker off the street? Like, can you imagine you're getting in the way of that? Like, that's insanity. So really what needs to happen is you literally gotta have, like, cooler heads prevail here. And this is where I'm going to, like, fault both parties here, okay? Or I should say Donald Trump and Tim Walz. Like, let's stop stoking this flame. Let's stop with this ridiculous. This is going a real bad way. We literally have the President of the United States talking about the Insurrection Act in Minnesota right now. Like, do you know how much I'm against that? Do you know how much I don't like a mobilization of federal law enforcement? And they're masked, by the way, they're masked, which is precious because Keith Ellison now is suing the federal government for violating the Minnesota statute on masking. Boy, isn't that a precious one? The same thing that we cited during COVID. But yes, I do have a problem with mass federal agents. Not that I don't get why they're doing it, like being doxxed and being put out there in the public view, but it's just a bad precedent to have mass federal agents. Now, listen, if you want to play Team Trump, like if you're listening to this, you're like, Jake, but this is the left is this and Donald Trump. Like, listen, don't you see how this is going to be used against us? You literally had the former president of the United States, Joe Biden, say that the greatest threat to America are MAGA extremists. And he said on multiple occasions, white supremacists, which, by the way, they think those are the two of the same things, right? They're not, but that's what he insinuates all the time. That was the president of the United States. I say that in quotations. The auto pen was really the president of the United States from that point. Do you not see how that's going to be used against us? Like, do you not see the history of Ruby Ridge and Waco, Texas? Like, how bad it can be for a mobilized federal law enforcement agency in our states? That's a terrible thing. So, yeah, I want nothing to do with more of that. But like the people on the left are unreasonable, right? If you were trying to give reason to Donald Trump, it's like, we have immigration laws. They need to be enforced. And by the way, they were enforced under Biden. They were enforced under Obama. Like, this is nothing new. We need to enforce these things. And here you got Tim Walz and Jacob Fry, and they go, sanctuary for all. And as you learn, the Patriot Carla Nelson talks about her school district. This happened in our school district. We're supplying education for people that aren't here legally. So they're taking up resources from students and other people in the community, and they're not supposed to be here. Now, I wouldn't mind having, a certain amount of economic immigration, especially from Mexicans, because Mexicans share a lot of cultural similarities with us, right? I have no problem with that. And this is where the other two parties get to blame on it, is none of them are solving this issue. Like, how long has immigration been an issue? And they have not actually found a way to allow more legalized immigration, economic immigration, right? And that would be like something, and I think this is a reasonable standpoint, is, there are certain jobs that a lot of us don't want to do. I mean, do you have a strong urge to get back on the roof in summers? Thank God we have people doing that. But it's like, you can't just assign voting rights overnight. Like, that's insanity. Like, then our country could like turn real quick. Not that giving that to Mexicans would be maybe a bad thing. They'd once again tend to have a lot of cultural similarities with us. But you can see how a lot of other immigrants, that could be a enormously bad thing. I think Jefferson wrote something about that. Let me get to some comments here. Godfather 2025, if the public would stay home, this would be a thing. They are going after everyone in the Minnesota because of the Walzy administration. Other cities, ICE only went after the bad. Yeah. Well, and that's actually a very interesting point. Yeah. By the way, this is just a hot mess. Okay. So I do have people that I know saying that, this mobilization, they're going after not just hardened criminal immigrants, like literally going to a kitchen asking who's back there working. Okay. Once again, not trying to defend like people here illegally. I'm just saying that when they say this is like all the hardened criminals, it's just not, right? That's just not that's not a factual statement. They're doing more than that. Okay. But with that being said, when we talk about like when Wall says indiscriminately going against American citizens, I don't think that's what this thing was at all about. I think it's because you guys aren't providing law enforcement perimeters, like cordoning off in a certain area. Then you have these wackos that come in and get in a position that really isn't going to end up being good. You actually put the agents' lives in danger, and you put other people in the community's lives in danger, and that's essentially what led to Renee Good being shot, right? And I'm not even going to opine on, was it a legit shooting or not? Like, let the facts of that case be known, okay? The point is, she was pushed into this position she probably should not have been pushed into, and Walz is right there. Respect for America said the laws were not enforced under Biden, Jake. Well, and that's so he did do deportations. So, that's on the factual record. They did go down quite a bit. Obama had a lot more than Trump, which is interesting. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is not new. Like, ICE agents isn't a new thing. Like, this has been a law enforcement operation for a long time in the Twin Cities. Let's say Nepkinate. Of course, anything to take off the spotlight from their fraud. Yeah, exactly. Carla Nelson says immigration was not enforced under Biden. Well, certainly not the border. I mean, it was a chaos down there. You guys are correcting me a lot better there. Immigration was very lacklusterly enforced under the Biden. So very, very good point. But Obama, way different, right? Gregory Reno 29 says, I love this will give the Democrats permission to weaponize the feds against this argument like they didn't already do it. Oh, yeah. Wonderful point, right? Like, that is a wonderful point. It was under Biden that we had a great assault on the First Amendment. It's under Biden that we had an assault on personal freedom and health freedom, right? You have to get this vaccine or otherwise you get fired. So, like, isn't it interesting we get lectured by these Democrats on weaponized federal government. It's like at this point, I just don't even. You guys have no credibility, which is also why it pisses me off when Trump or anyone on the right gives them any bit of credibility on a certain part of an issue, like Joe Thompson getting fired from the U.S. Attorney's Office. It's like I don't want these guys to have any credibility at all. They really shouldn't have any. But because people on our side make mistakes, whatever our side is here. I'm not really on the side of some of these bozos in power, but if you're going to lie to the public, yeah, you're kind of giving a lot more credence to the leftists, and I hate that. Carla says ICE removal of illegals protects our elections. We know illegals have been voting, and it's never for the Republicans. We don't know how much. We know it's happened. We don't know how large that is, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's an interesting point. Napkinade says, Jake, what do we think would happen if a group counter-protested in support of ICE? Oh, that's what's going to happen. That is what's going to happen, and it's not going to be good, right? So I should say this. I was at the Capitol a couple years ago. Looks like John's really trying to get back on here. I was at the Capitol a couple years ago, and it must have been a COVID mandate rally, anti-COVID mandate rally. Probably one of Bashofsky's vaccine ones. I just don't even remember what the protest was, but it was, let's just put the good guys, so like our people, and then it was then all of a sudden, and then you'd get like the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys like to dangle the AR across their chest, which is legal in Minnesota, but it's very untested. So they like to test that one. So they'd be walking this perimeter, and their idea was to like protect, the safety of, patriots protesting. And then what appeared was Antifa or some kind of faction of leftists, armed, masked, and like in dark clothing. And I still can like visually see this. They're like down by the Veterans Memorial. So if you think of the Capitol lawn facing south, there's the Veterans Memorial. And I remember like the Proud Boys started like moving that direction. And here you have like two armed groups. And I'll never forget, like state troopers just ascended right there on that thing. Sirens going, like, oh my God, things are going down and it's not going to be good. And luckily nothing happened that day. So, yeah, I guess the question is, yeah, what does happen when you have these clashes? Because it's possible it's going to happen. LEF says, if internet isn't fast enough, Zoom will be glitchy with video, but work without video. They'll have only audio of John, but it might be an option. John, if you can hear me, let's just cut the video. Let's try just the audio, because that's a really good point. We're not using Zoom. We're using Rumble Studios, just by the way. LK to live. Walz threatened the federal agents with the National Guard.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you great right now. Let's just try this, John. This might be the better way to do it.
Good. It might just be a delay. I'm actually outside the continental United States, so that might be part of our problem today.
Oh, you're not at home. You're outside the continental United States? John, can you hear me? John, I don't think this is going to get any better, by the way. Wherever you're at, sounds like it looked like the Caribbean, by the way. We'll probably have to just reschedule, because this just doesn't seem like it's going to work out. All right, I'm just going to boot him here. Guys, I know a lot of you wanted to hear from him, so we'll get him back. The show must go on. Yeah, Razzle says, just reschedule with John. Yeah, I will definitely. Respect for America's from America says, give John a phone call. I don't want to do it via phone. It's better just for me to look at somebody. And then I got to hold the phone up to the microphone. That's not a good interview. Let's give him a proper interview. I think we could do that. Not a big deal. Well, crap. So, wasn't expecting this. Let's do this real quick here. I want to check because, since we're here, I don't want to sign off if things are going down at the Capitol. I want to break this news if it's here. Let's see here. So I'm just kind of scanning X. And it could just been that one isolated event. But it is today's news. It does say St. Paul students march to Capitol rally turns chaotic. Okay. Yeah, and I see a lot of shared videos of the same thing. Also, I heard Nick Shirley released another video this morning that I haven't seen it. Seems like this is pretty widely shared. And I imagine that's coming from this morning. Obviously, I'm doing this on the fly, so I can't validate everything. So, okay. And I hate to spread misinformation if it's not true, but it does seem to be true. Wing says John Krhin and I graduated from the same college 23 years apart. Well, congratulations, Wings. Razzle Dazzle, have him come to the studio. He needs to campaign exclusively in the belly anyway. Yeah, no, I don't think he needs to exclusively campaign in the belly of the beast. Not a chance. That's not where the votes are. Razzle says yesterday's Shirley video was awesome. Oh, did it come out yesterday? I just found out about this morning. Okay, well, I'll have to go check that out. We did reach out to Nick Shirley, see if he wants to come on. So we'll see if we hear back from him. He's obviously a busy guy. All right. Well, since I lost my guest and I don't have topics prepared, let's end this here, and I will revisit this thing with John here soon. We'll be putting out videos daily, so I hope you guys appreciate it. Go check. If you haven't checked the one out today, go check it out. And by the way, if you haven't liked us on YouTube, we're just about to hit 1,000 YouTube subscribers. And that's huge because we started from scratch. You got to understand, we were censored. We had 3 strikes for speaking what all probably is true. There was one time we got a strike when I had Dr. Neil Shaw on here and we were talking about vaccines. And I'm just like, okay, well, my expert is John's trying to sign on again. We'll give it one more try. Neil's like a Mayo trained physician. Who's your expert? YouTube, so that's just how ridiculous they got. All right, John's trying to sign on. Maybe he's got a buddy down there with Starlink. So we'll give it one more shot. Taking a huge risk here. I'm really sorry to the people. This is live, so I can't just cut out this video for people in the future. You're gonna have to just deal with it, If there's some way I could put a note on there, hey, stick around till 30 minutes in, and then we get John. Well, John said he was joining. I don't see him right now, so this is one of the reasons I like doing.
Microphone's on, Jake.
Okay, well, I can hear you.
Excellent.
I'm really good right now.
I'm not even going to try the camera again. If you can hear me,
I can hear you very well. Yes.
If anyone wants a picture of me, just send me their link, and I'll send them a picture of me if they want to see me too.
All right. Well, John, since I got you, I was thinking I was just going to reschedule with you, but since I got you, let's get into some things here. The last question I asked, your dad was born in 1892. Is he a World War I veteran?
Well, he came from Slovenia in 1913. He fled Austria-Hungary when the emperor had forced conscription, and also they were not allowed to marry if they were under 25 years of age. So he came here looking for a fresh start, and thank God that he made it.
Yeah, no kidding. That's crazy. All right, so I was trying to fill time. I don't know how much stuff you caught, but obviously the topic du jour right now in Minnesota. It sounds like you're not in Minnesota. Is that correct?
I'm not in Minnesota today. I have a yearly commitment outside of the state, and that's where I am today.
Well, it looked like it was probably somewhere south because I saw an AC unit in the room.
It's south.
Oh, is this an undisclosed location?
It's south, it's west. I'm actually in Hawaii, Jake.
Oh
I
man, I
hate,
love
I hate
Hawaii.
to break that news to you, but I'm
That's
actually in
okay.
Hawaii.
Listen, when I was in the army and I was in Iraq, my R&R was 16 days in Hawaii. So that
Ah,
was
nice.
I love it. I've been there a couple times and I absolutely love it. Where are you in Hawaii?
Kauai.
Oh, cool.
Kauai. Island of
Cool.
Kauai.
Well, yeah, probably deserve that trip. So we won't hold any ill will towards you, even
Thank
though we're
you.
freezing our butts off here in Minnesota. Um, I don't know if you heard, there's ice all around, pun intended. So, John,
Yes.
even though you're in Hawaii, and if I was in Hawaii, I'd probably turn my phone off and not pay attention to the news, but I'm guessing you didn't because you're running for governor. Uh, you're probably privy to what's been going on here in the last week. What are your thoughts?
Jake, it's awful. Governor Walz, as we know, is on his way out. Um, I don't know whatever happened to recall. He should have been recalled a long time ago. Um, but not only Governor Walz, but what's happened in Minnesota, as I've been sharing on my website and a few opportunities publicly, Minnesota needs a reset. Our culture, you'd think that Minnesota has been asleep for the last 40 years. Uh, I go back to, Ronald Reagan, and when the whole country came alive and saw, wow, we really are a city, a shining city on a hill. Minnesota, Minnesotans must have been living in a cave because in 80 and 84, of course, in 84, they're only state in the nation that did not vote for Trump, along with the District of
You mean
Columbia.
Reagan?
For Reagan, yeah, excuse me. And and then when I look at the apathy among the voters, to know that there's 2.5 million people who are eligible to vote in Minnesota who don't, and then they whine about what the Smallies are doing. Come on, Jake, let's get these guys, let's get these people voting. And so that's who I'm going at. I'm going after the Christians. I hear there's 1.5 million of them that haven't voted in the last election. And then the Trump voters. I voted for Trump 3 times, like you probably did. But look at down ballot voting in Minnesota. Why aren't they voting for Republican candidates? Well, of course, we know too many of them are rhinos, but still, we need to get red on the slate before we make any other progress. So we've got a lot of work to do, and I think we need a reset. We need to look fresh at our Constitution and say, what is the government of Minnesota supposed to be doing, and what aren't they doing?
Mm-hmm.
And too often we're caught up in the latest thing that's occurring. Right now it's the Somalis and the riots, but when that wasn't in the news 6 months ago, what was the legislature doing? What was the governor doing? Uh, the problem is these politicians are just setting their own courses, and they're not really listening to the needs of the people.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let me ask you this question. Do you think Trump is navigating this whole issue correctly? Do you think there's some criticism that he deserves for this? Because obviously what we're looking at right now is Trump talking about and threatening the Insurrection Act in the state, mobilizing agents, and as much as I support getting rid of these bad, sex traffickers and drug traffickers and all that stuff, they're not clearly not just doing that. And they're definitely not being welcomed in the metro area. Do you think he's navigating this the correct way?
Well, the first responsibility constitutionally of the executive office, both nationally and statewide, is for the security and the protection of the people. Well, when we have so many immigrants coming in and violating our immigration laws, we need to deport them. And yes, he needs to keep doing that. He needs to send more ICE agents here. And if he needs to protect them with other agencies, I think even if he needs to call in the National Guard, I laugh at how Tim Walz wants to bring in the Guard to protect Minnesotans from Trump. What? The National Guard is to protect citizens from invasion and from crime within. Invasion from without and from civil unrest and crime within. And Go back to Black Lives Matters. We're all still scratching our heads about how that got twisted by the media.
Right, but do you think this is a good idea for the federal government to do it?
Well, if the state's not doing it, who's going to do it?
Do you think the state's not going to repel, like, any kind of mass, rioting and looting? I know obviously Walls'
Well,
record.
they didn't before.
Well, they didn't do it in time, obviously.
Well, I'm saying Minnesota has a track record of not performing, not stepping up. Minnesota was burning, and we heard the governor's wife's, smelling the smoke, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, Minnesota has failed, and the voters of Minnesota this election need to go out. We need to reset what's happening in Minnesota, uh, and of course the problem, what's at the root of it. I'm a big convention of states proponent. Term limits needs to happen. When we have these legislators who just go on and on and on and turning it into a uniparty, that's at the root of the problem. How are we going to deal with issues if we can't have clear policy, legislative policy, if there's just fighting continually? And the only way we're going to get clear policy is by getting new candidates in there. And Jake, even in my district, we've turned northern Minnesota there red, and yet I think if I look at Action for Liberty's assessment of the candidates, they're polling at what, 25-30% of what Action for Liberty stands for. Something's wrong with our Republican Party, Jake.
Well, I definitely agree with that. I mean, obviously, these candidates are, I would accuse being, Republicans in name only. We call them rhinos. They vote like Democrats when they're in office, and they're getting along very well with Democrats. I don't think it's a mutual relationship, as Mort brought up on our last show. Let's talk
So
about
go
some.
back to the constitutional issue in Minnesota. I read in Minnesota's constitution, there's a one paragraph description of what the duties of the governor of Minnesota are. And among the top of those are to provide for the safety of the people.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the problem is Walls and Jacob Fry and basically a lot of mayors of big cities want them to be sanctuary. They don't believe in the immigration laws.
Right. And,
And
and let's look at, I don't know if you want to call them NGOs or not, but I was born a Catholic. I've been an Assemblies of God minister since just after I turned 20 years old. But I look at what Lutheran Social Services is doing, what the Catholic Charities are doing, all in the name of Christ, bringing these immigrants in, providing for them, giving, 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 giving. My campaign is, towards the Christian church, towards the Christian conscience. When are we going to go back to common sense? We can't just keep dishing out without asking for responsibility from the immigrants. My father took 8 years to go through. He needed to learn English. He needed to get a job. Before he had a job, he had to have a sponsor here in the United States. He never collected a dime of welfare in his life. He raised 8 children. They all pursued the vocations they wanted to. We need a reset. We need to. Some might say, "Well, that's so old-fashioned." No, it's not. It's common sense, and it's based on what our Constitution says.
you left the Catholic Church at 20 and became Assemblies of God. What was the reason behind that? And I believe you are a minister, right?
I am a minister, and I'm retired from active pastoral ministry, but I've been doing that. I was doing that for over 40 years. We started a church in Duluth. We started a church in the community I live in, Side Lake. When I was 20 years old, I went to the bishop, my brother-in-law, and I went to the bishop of the Duluth diocese and told him, listen, we've just come to new faith in Christ, and we started reading our Bibles, but we're finding that the church does not line up with the Bible in many areas. And he said to us, I have no problem sharing it. Bishop Anderson said to us, well, there's times where you need to trust the church and his doctrine above the scriptures. I said, I can't do that. And he very graciously said, well, maybe you should be going to another church. And so we went to another church.
What do you think the Catholics didn't line up with biblically?
Well, for instance, praying to the saints, the infallibility of the Pope. I
Have
can
you?
I can get into specific doctrinal
Well,
things.
it's interesting you say that. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole with you. I'm actually Lutheran. My dad's a Lutheran pastor. Um, I don't believe you have the right assessment on what the Catholics believe on that. Have you revisited that since you're 20 years old? I can see why a 20-year-old would think that. Have you revisited that at all?
What the Catholic said to me at that time, what the
Well, no,
bishop
no, no,
said.
no. What the Catholic Church actually believes. I mean, it could be a bad priest or bad bishop, I guess, in this case. Not
Well,
understanding
Bishop
it.
Anderson was a wonderful bishop. I don't criticize him. I think he was doing something that the church above him and the ecclesia above him started clamping down on. This was in the wake of what was called the charismatic renewal. And I know we're getting into church stuff
Well, that's
and
where my audience is at. I
on
mean,
the political show, but
no,
but
no, that's fine. I
there's
mean,
been
I think people want to
there's
know
been
about.
big changes. There's been big changes, and uh, uh, the Catholic Church today is, they're under, if you want to call it in one way, a renewal of recruitment. They're getting people into the church now that a lot of them lost. That a lot of them that were lost or were out or weren't involved. Uh, and when I talk about the Catholic Church, I reference Lutheran Charities. I reference the Catholic Charities and Lutheran Social Services. The Catholic Church stands for some very important things, such as life. They except for the hierarchy in the church, they just talk the talk. But you look to the average Catholic today, and they believe in life. They believe in life at conception. That was one of the questions that came to us at the last forum, and um, there's a lot of legislators that would say the same thing. But guess what? When they come to voting on the issue, they drift. They drift. They
Mhm.
don't stick to it.
Right. Okay, so it sounds like you're very pro-life.
Absolutely. I'm going to be the most pro-life governor in Minnesota history. We need to make it a law. If I or I will at least suggest or try and have legislation introduced that says that every expectant mother needs to view an ultrasound. That should be required because of the age we're living in, the technology that we're living in. I don't know if you've seen an ultrasound recently, but 80% of mothers that see an ultrasound choose not to have an abortion. It's so obvious that there's human life in that womb.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
And when I brought this to candidate Jensen last cycle around, he looked at me like a deer in the headlights. And I've come to see that I understand more, and I won't get into the particulars, but why? I don't believe he's pro-life down to the bone.
yeah, and no doubt about it. I mean, he doesn't know which way he's gonna go on that issue. What about guns? Where do you stand on that issue?
Well, I've had a permit to carry, I think, for 25 years, and I don't believe they should be locked up in my home. If I have a permit to carry a gun and I'm in my domicile, I should be able to have a loaded gun there ready to use.
Do you think you
And
should have to have a permit to carry, or do you believe that you have
I
that
think
right?
I think we should have a constitutional right to carry. We should be a constitutional state. But until then, I'm going to keep getting a permit.
Oh, no doubt about it. I understand that, but, you do believe in constitutional carry.
Absolutely.
Okay, what are some of the other issues for your campaign? I know very little about you, and I was looking at your website, doesn't seem like there's an issues page yet.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up. Right now, because I don't have the traction that Jensen has, or that uh, uh, my good friend, I
Or the
call him,
internet
I
connection.
call him a good friend, Mike Lindell. I'm a big supporter of Mike. In fact, if Mike had been running before I declared, I probably wouldn't be running today. So I'm asking God, like maybe some of you are, why are you running when Mike Lindell is out there as such a good candidate? Well, I'm going to have to leave that in God's hands right now. And I'm trying to get a sit down with Mike so that we can try and coordinate our efforts here. But getting back to my issues right now, my web page and my social media are trying to get people to understand where my heart is at. And once they understand that, and when they understand that I'm running on the basis of what the constitutions say, both federally and statewide, then I'm going to address policies from that perspective. What is our state constitution? What are our nationally, what are our Bill of Rights guarantee to us? And we should be making laws based on that. And I mean on the original Constitution, not that annotated version that the courts have corrupted for the last 250 years. We need to get back to the original document of the Constitution. And so let's take you name a topic, and I'll give you my policy on it uh, based on what I just said. What do you think is the biggest topic that people are asking right now?
Well, let's start with this. Let's talk about the size of government.
Oh, for sure. Let's cut it in half. We need to do a total review of every department in the state of Minnesota. And I will be pressing to have a commission, or I don't even know what I'd call it, but we have to have a sit down and say, why is this department necessary? Look at the DNR, for instance. Why are we spending all of this kinds of money and trying to run the Department of Natural Resources from a bureaucratic office in the Twin Cities? When I talk to, for instance, a logger that's right in my community, he says to me, John, why can't I get to federal lands and get a permit to cut timber on the federal lands? The state won't let us build a road through the state owned property to get to these federal lands. Well, local people can see that. They need to be making that decision, not some bureaucrat down at the state level. Let's look at the Department of Education. Yeah, you might have seen in my profile that we chose to homeschool our kids back to 1980. Why? Not that I'm against public education, but when public education starts to try and teach my children morals, for instance, our second grader came home with a book from the library, Heather Has Two Mommies. The next day we went and talked to our school teacher. My daughter doesn't need at 7 years old to know that why Heather has two mommies. She needs to learn how to read and to write and to start learning how to do her figures. Okay. uh, I mentioned at the first forum I was at, when my father served as a school board member back in the day, the school boards then determined not only who would be hired, and they didn't necessarily hire PhDs for all of the administrative positions. Okay. When it came to curriculum, the school boards decided what should be in that curriculum. They decided uh, the issues. The local people decided those issues. Now, I don't know if you saw up in Hibbing. I think it was something that took place recently in Grand Rapids too. But in Hibbing, they wanted to have a referendum to increase, have a new bonding issue and increase money and have more money for more staff and more building projects, etc. And the people voted it down. I think it got about 30% support. What does that tell you? It tells you that local people are fed up with what the school districts are doing. They want to have a voice, but they're not given that voice anymore. And so I think the Minnesota would be wise to follow what Trump's doing on the national level. Abolish the Department of Education, start all over. Schools are going to operate without the Department of Education. They're going to operate. Local citizens will see that they operate.
Right. Well, I mean, you could just take whatever's collected or usually distributed to the school districts from the state government. You could subtract the bureaucracy around the Department of Education and just give
Absolutely.
the
Now you're
remainder
talking
amount back to.
policy. I can hardly wrap my head around it to think that $26,000 a year is spent on a student in a public school. It's
Mhm.
it's mind-boggling. Why does the state of Minnesota need to spend $3 billion every biennium on education? Why should the University of Minnesota, which is really, you know, is everything bad at the University of Minnesota? No. They put out some wonderful doctors, wonderful engineers, et cetera, et cetera. But they've become a cultural influence and they're getting way too much money from the taxpayers.
Mhm. Let me ask you this. You talk about slashing half of the state government. Obviously, I like that idea. Uh, how do you get that done if there's a legislature, Republicans and Democrats, that really don't agree with you. In fact, even the Republicans are always increasing government.
Well, here's where term limits comes in, Jake. We need to primary, and you probably have the inside scoop. I've even been encouraged to try and primary one of our existing legislators in our district because they're not really holding the line. But we need term limits. We need fresh blood that'll go in there and not wait for a 2-year moratorium before they can speak up on the House floor. Day one, like I told Jesse, your friend, your partner Jesse, day one, like Mr. Smith went to Washington, they need to start saying on day one, here's what needs to be changed. We have enough of the status quo and these policies that keep failing and failing and failing. The only way we'll get that is if we have a new slate of legislators regularly, where that body's being turned over and it's feeling the heartbeat of the population.
You talk about being encouraged to run for another position, and that you wouldn't have got in and Mike Lindell got in. I mean, it seems like this might be quite a step for you to take. You've never run for office. You never run for office before, is that correct?
I've not run for office, but I can tell you this: I've been involved in the grassroots level. We've served as delegates. We've gone to county and state conventions.
Well, I guess my question here, I'm running short on time here because I got to be done in an hour, and we're at about 52 minutes. Would you explore like running for a different position? It just seems like this might be a tough one to run. I looked at your website; it doesn't have a lot. You have tech issues. I don't know how much you've got. I'm just not going to get the chance to go through all these issues.
Sure, I hear where you're going, and let me answer that. Everything since I've been 20 years old is based on Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Okay. And we've prayed. I was going to school to be an accountant and wanted to finish with a pre-law degree and go to law school. God interrupted that. I answered a call into ministry. From that point until now, I do things when I believe I'm hearing from God. The day that Charlie Kirk died, and the day of his memorial, I turned to my wife and I said, Minnesota can't continue under this present administration. And so we prayed for the month of October. We consulted with some of our closest friends. And the governor's office is the one that holds the power of the bully pulpit. Mm-hmm. The legislature isn't going to move if they have a governor that's fighting them, and if they have an attorney general that's fighting them. And I don't know why, Jake. I guess we'll have to ask God one day.
Well, Becky Hack is being used by God to tell you to move to CD6 and run against him.
Well, I guess you're doing what you're doing as an Action for Liberty host, and I've been answering God's call and starting churches and planting churches. And I might not have a big popular name, but I can tell you what, we've influenced thousands of lives in our life. And we've got children and grandchildren who, if for nothing else, the choices we've made these last 53 years, we'll be married 53 years this year. And we just thank God that our children are gainfully employed. They all own their homes. They bought their homes before they were 5 years of age. They didn't buy $300,000 homes. They bought fixer-uppers like mom and dad did and worked our butts off remodeling. Or in our case, we not only remodeled several homes, but we actually built from the ground up 2 homes. When it comes to policies, I'm telling these young couples, my social media directors right now, they've been married 5 years. And I said, are you guys homeowners or you rent? They said, we rent. We can't come up with the 20% down. Right. So I'm saying, well, why shouldn't Minnesota take some of the state and federal land here and make it available to young couples like yourself so that you can go to a bank and say, here's the land that I have in lieu of a 20% down payment. And why can't we locally say, using the ideas like go back to 4-H or local communities. I've got contractors in my church and who would love to sit down with a young couple and give them some tips about how they could build their own home.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? But
Well, it's a
our
big
culture
issue.
needs a
Yeah,
reset, Jake.
it's a big issue. I mean, I think the average age of the first-time home buyer is, like, approaching 40 years old now, so that's a big
It's
issue.
ridiculous,
Yeah.
and why? Because we've been influencing them to go to these public colleges and universities. They come out with a degree, and they can't get a job for one thing, and how are they going to buy a home? You know, we need to get back to home skills. We homeschooled our children not just because the public school system was failing. And by the way, I'm not an opponent of public education. But I believe that public education needs to be accountable to common sense and to the people. And we've gone way beyond that. Why do Twin Cities metro area schools need to hire 3 and 4 administrators that are making six-figure salaries?
Right,
It We've gone way beyond what common sense tells us, Jake.
right. Well, I gotta end it there, John. I'm short of time here today, so, appreciate it. What's the
Jake, I
website?
appreciate it. I
What
appreciate it. And in spite of the technical difficulties, I think some of it was the fact that we're in Hawaii and we're trying to bridge this thing. I don't know. But
you're
website
great.
is krhinforgov.com. Uh, and I just ask that you give me another crack here in the future when we have a little more time. If I can, I'll work on my technical things and you see what you can work out. Okay.
Sounds good, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate what you're doing. Keep it up.
Alright. All right. Well, that's all the time we have, folks. I don't have time for a post show here. I just was not planning on this taking so long. Seems like a perfectly nice gentleman. It just obviously with the way this whole technological issue went, it went awry. And I'll just just kind of sum up a lot of just like regurgitating, I think, common talking points. So maybe the interview got off on the wrong foot because I got some people I like and trust who said you really got to check this guy out and talk to him, but we just didn't end up getting into substance too much, I think. But I did agree. I can't remember who wrote that. Good on education. So yeah, that's a big disaster in Minnesota, like a lot of other things. Thank you to Alpine Chemistry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota, and EliteGuardianImmun.com. We'll be back on Tuesday. I got a pretty cool show I'm putting together. I don't want to announce it yet. And we'll be doing videos every day here. So I guess the funny thing is when I was doing one show a week last couple months, having one show go bad was a big deal, but now it's like, we got a couple of videos. We put out a lot of content here. So please, if you haven't done it, like us or subscribe to us on YouTube. Let's hit that 1,000 today. I mean, it's a big deal. You got to remember, YouTube was not playing cool with us. We had to build all from scratch. That's not easy to do on YouTube, just FYI. They are playing nice right now, which is good. And under no illusion that can't change in the future. But YouTube is far superior to Rumble in many regards. At least Rumble has been always free speech. But we're also on Facebook and X and all that kind of stuff. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.